Good morning. My name is Joe Krausz. And in today's theme, as you already heard, it's not easy being green. And this theme fits very, very well into our seventh principle. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, and only a part. If we are serious about this seventh principle, it requires that we develop a sincere and deep compassion and love for all living creatures. I would like to share with you a passage from a Buddhist document called the Sutta Nipata that coincides very well with our seventh principle, and yes, with being green. It's entitled The Discourse on Goodwill. May all beings be filled with joy and peace, all beings everywhere, the strong and the weak, the great and the small, the aggressive and the gentle, the short and the long, the subtle and the gross. May all beings everywhere, those that are seen and those that are unseen, those that are far, far away and those that are nearby, those that are being and those that are waiting to become. With humans, let no one deceive another. Let no one anywhere despise another. May no one out of anger and frustration wish suffering upon anyone at all. Instead, just as a mother with her own life protects her child, her only child, from harm, may we develop and nurture a bountiful love for all beings. And may this love radiate throughout the universe to its very heights and depths, its broad expanse. A limitless love without enmity or hatred of any kind. And as we stand or as we walk, as we sit or as we lie down, as long as we are awake, may we focus upon this love. And then, as you do so, you'll be manifesting a bit of heaven upon this earth. This passage supports the seventh principle, as we mentioned before, and it behooves us to take seriously to strive to be green. For it benefits not only us, but for all beings. And it would behoove us to remember what Dr. Albert Schweitzer said. Until man extends his circle of compassion to include all living beings, he himself will not find peace.
We want to call your attention to the vegetables for this part of the surface, and fruits, I should add, with this reading from Max Kutz. Let us give thanks for a bounty of people.
For children who are our second planting, and though they grow like weeds and the wind too soon blows them away, may they forgive us our cultivation and fondly remember where our roots are.
Let us give thanks
for generous friends with hearts and smiles as bright as their blossoms.
For feisty friends as tart as apples.
For continuous friends who, like scallions and cucumbers, keep reminding us that we had them.
For crotchety friends, sour as rhubarb and as indestructible.
For handsome friends who are as gorgeous as eggplants and as elegant as a row of corn, and the others as plain as potatoes and so good for you.
For funny friends who are as silly as Brussels sprouts and as amusing as Jerusalem artichokes.
And serious friends, as unpretentious as cabbages, or subtle as summer squash, as persistent as parsley, as delightful as dill, as endless as zucchini, and who are like parsnips, can be counted on to see you through the winter.
For old friends nodding like sunflowers in the evening time, and young friends coming on as fast as radishes.
For loving friends who wind around us like tendrils and hold us despite our blights, wilts, and witherings.
And finally, for those friends now gone, like gardens past that have been harvested, but who fed us in their times, that we might have life thereafter.
For all these we give thanks.
And now the blessing of the vegetables, which I always prefer to the blessing of the animals, because as you can see, the vegetables are very well behaved. As we follow the path of the sun toward a descent into autumn, we come to the ancient Celtic festival of Lammas, honoring the first harvest 10 days from now.
It was the custom to honor this festival by bringing the first fruits to be blessed, a custom that continued in the Old Country and in New England in colonial days.
In that spirit, we bring this offering of fresh fruits and vegetables to be blessed to the sustenance of our neighbors in need at Clemson Community Care.
They represent the ties that bind us to one another and to the earth, which nourishes each and all of us.
In thankfulness for the blessings of the earth, we offer our blessing on the fruits and vegetables that you have shared.
May we be blessed by the giving and others be blessed in receiving this bounty of nature that we share.
I'm going to read a poem by Mary Oliver called Goldenrod. On roadsides, in fall fields, in bumpy bunches, saffron and orange and pale gold, in little towers, soft as mash, sneeze bringers and seed bearers, full of bees and yellow beads, and perfect flowerlets and orange butterflies. I don't suppose much notice comes of it, except for honey, and how it heartens the heart with its blank blaze. I don't suppose anything loves it except perhaps the rocky voids filled by its dumb dazzle. For myself, I was just passing by when the wind flared and the blossoms rustled and the glittering pandemonium leaned on me. I was just minding my own business when I found myself on their straw hillsides, citron and butter-colored and happy, and was happy. And why not? Are not the difficult labors of our lives full of dark hours? And what has consciousness come to anyway so far that is better than these light-filled bodies? All day on their airy backbones they toss in the wind. They bend as though it was natural and godly to bend. They rise in a sweetness, in the pure peace of giving one's gold away. And I'm very lucky that I'm not allergic.
Good morning, everyone. Weren't we all happy to see that rain come down yesterday, just watering our blue boat, which really needs it bad? Okay, well, I'm going to talk about making your yard green or making your garden green. And you're probably going to expect advice from me on how to keep pests and pathogens under control without using toxic pesticides. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I want to focus on the true meaning of green and of greening our planet. The environmental movement is a green movement, and the green part relates back to the plants that make our world green, providing us with oxygen and shade and filtering water through their roots, preventing pollution and floods. Keeping our world green means ending deforestation and leaving places for the wild animals, birds, insects, and even microorganisms that are all a part of the interdependent web. We humans have taken out large swaths of forests and prairies, replacing them with croplands, forest plantations, orchards, vineyards, and pastures. We've taken much of the rest for villages, towns, and cities, paving over woodlands, meadows, even farmlands, to create places for people to work, live, and shop. Well, according to Douglas Tallamy in Bringing Nature Home, I brought the book with me if anybody's interested in seeing it. It's a very interesting book. He says that well over 70% of the forests along our eastern seaboard are gone. And the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service estimates that between 1982 and 1997, 2 million acres, and that's the size of Yellowstone National Park, were lost to development each and every year. How much is left undisturbed? This is hard to estimate since undisturbed can have different degrees. But by one estimate, only 3 to 5% of the land in the U.S. is undisturbed habitat. That's not very much. And the amount that remains undisturbed is often in scattered islands, and these small areas are not of sufficient size to sustain viable populations of wildlife for very long. Our towns and villages continue to grow, and our cities are surrounded by suburban sprawl. What's not paved in these areas is sodded and planted with a limited number of plant species, many of them exotic. We must all admit that each of us is a part of this problem. So what is the solution? We can help by making our yards and gardens a little wilder and therefore a little greener. First, create meadows from your lawns, like the one in our lovely sanctuary garden. Pollinators will flock to the flowery meadows, and many of these are parasitic wasps, which keep insects under control. And plant goldenrod, as Carol suggested in the poem by Mary Oliver. And remember that goldenrod actually isn't the culprit of your sneezes. It's ragweed, which blooms at the same time. Anything that blooms, colorful blooms, is something that's going to attract bees, and it has a denser pollen that doesn't get airborne and into your nose. So welcome those flowery friends into your yard. I'm not suggesting that we should give up lawns altogether. The love of grasslands is a part of the human psyche because our ancestors were actually safer in that type of an environment. And a lawn adds to our enjoyment of the garden by providing an easy place to walk and play. It also provides a contrast to other types of plantings. But consider making your lawn smaller, allowing the clippings to fall on it, which helps to nourish it, and using an electric mower. Gasoline mowers emit a lot of carbon dioxide. Did you know that mowing your lawn for an hour emits as much CO2 as driving 650 miles? That seems kind of outrageous to me, but that was in this Talmud book, so I assume it's true. Secondly, plant native species of trees and shrubs whose trees can provide food for caterpillars and other insects. Vigorous, established plants can tolerate insect feeding without any long-term damage to their health. The insects will in turn feed birds and their nestlings. And trees can also withstand quite a bit of disease pressure in that regard too. Foliar diseases on trees usually are not a big problem. Trees make enough extra leaves to be able to lose some. Okay, non-native species, that's what we have mostly in our garden, all those Japanese hollies and Chinese hollies and Eleagnus and privet. These non-native species are often touted as pest-free by the horticulture industry, and that is true because most of them have left their pest insects behind in their native lands. Many insects are specialists, and these have developed over millennia with the specific plants that they feed on. So these exotic plants are just not on their menu. Mice and other rodents will live in the meadows and the forested areas that we create, and these will feed hawks, owls, and other predators. Try to provide for the needs of these animals by including shelter, water, and food. Those are the 3 basic necessities. Dense plantings and evergreens provide shelter, and a simple bird bath can provide water. Install bird feeders, including hummingbird feeders. Also, many natives that you would plant will provide fruits that are enjoyed by the birds and animals. And unlike those of exotic invasives, who also provide a lot of fruit for the animals and birds, but the seeds and the bird droppings from native plants will add to the native population in areas nearby, rather than taking over the understory with invasives. By creating gardens with a variety of native plants, we can help to restore the balance of nature in our own yards and gardens. And we can do this in a tasteful, beautiful way that'll convince our neighbors to do the same. And as more people take up this practice, these small garden ecosystems can add up to increase the overall habitat for native creatures of all kinds. Provide, protect, explore, and live in the interdependent web of which we are all a part.
I'm going to ask 2 of my colleagues to take these out to the congregation while I talk about what we're giving you. And I've got more.
Just give me that.
Yeah, just pass them around. When I was in kindergarten, I think, I learned a song that was wrong. It went something like this. Buzz, 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 Bonnie busy bee, take from every friendly flower lots of honey to your bower. Buzz, 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 Bonnie busy bee. And then when I grew up, I said, wait a minute, they don't take honey to their bower. They take nectar to their bower and they make the honey, unless I learned something wrong about bees. But in the process, of course, they pick up lots of pollen and they pollinate. So when the sanctuary garden was blooming, I asked Art Campbell, I was so taken with the red clover because it was so beautiful. And I said, so how do I plant? I have more if you need it. Got lots more, yeah. And he said, well, you go down to Griff's and you buy red clover seed. And he said, and then you disturb the soil. I said, ooh, that sounds like a sermon title. So anyway, I got more specific instructions, which are in your little bag there. But I learned something important about red clover, and that is it blooms between when the fruit blossoms bloom and when the white clover blooms, and it gives a continuous food source in the meantime for the bees. And it's really pretty. So your little assignment in there, your little sheet of instructions says in August you can do some soil preparation and plant it in late October, and you'll have lovely red things and lots of bees. So I think a service should always give you something you can do. Meg gave you some great ideas about things you can do. This is something specific and concrete, and we've got a few spares, so if you need to take one to a neighbor or a friend, there's plenty.